Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sydney, and if you are new here, this is just a place where we talk about all things spooky and true crime, basically anything that I find interesting. The next couple videos are just going to be kind of random one-off little stories that I found super interesting, and I feel like not a lot of people know about them. So we're going to dive deep. We're going to get right into it. But before we get into today's video, I just want to give a little update on just the channel, things that are happening, things like that. As you've probably noticed if you're a regular watcher on this channel, is that I have been posting a lot less than usual. And that is because I am actually in the process of doing my clinical rotations for my school. So that leaves me a lot less time to make videos. I only have about a month left of clinicals. So once we pass that, kind of like August mark, the upload schedule should be a lot more consistent. I want to get out a lot more content to you guys as soon as I can, but thank you in advance for understanding, and I really appreciate all the love and support all the time. So enough of that cheesiness. Let's get into today's video. So I'm actually very excited about today's topic because it is something that is fascinating, but we don't talk about it enough. So today we're going to talk about it, and that is things falling from the sky. I know you're probably thinking like, why are we talking about this? Because it's crazy. Because like, if you just look up things falling from the sky, you're going to see like literally everything. Everything has fallen from the sky. And today we're going to be talking about 3 different cases where there were things just falling from the sky. So our first story today starts out in Harrisonville, Ohio, in October of 1903. A man named Zachary Dye reported to a local newspaper that a rock had been thrown through his window. And to be honest, this doesn't sound like a big deal, and like it must have been a very slow news day if they were talking about somebody getting a rock thrown through their window, but I guess this was big news in 1903. So within a few days of Zach Dye reporting this rock flying through his window, a majority of the townspeople in Harrisonville reported hearing and seeing stones just falling from the sky. And the strange thing is that there were no clouds in the sky, completely clear day, but yet there were rocks falling from the frickin' sky. I don't know if you guys have seen the original like Frankenstein movie, but I imagine this next part as like the townspeople gathering with pitchforks and stuff. But the entire town gathered and they started to interrogate all the boys and the men in the town to see like what was all this shenanigans going on. They thought that maybe it would have been like some sort of gang activity, but nothing was ever found from this investigation. The phenomenon of rocks just falling from the sky happened as early as 1857 and as recent as 2017. And this isn't an isolated incident either in terms of geography. This has happened everywhere from Indonesia to Kenya. In 1982 in Kenya, there were rocks falling from the sky, and this was just a regular occurrence. And townspeople began to bring in many different people to try to fix this problem because it was damaging for multiple different reasons. Both scientists and conspiracy theorists have come up with many different reasons for these rocks falling from the sky. And this has ranged from tornadoes to meteorites and, of course, aliens. Others think that it could be more spiritual. People think that this phenomenon of rocks just falling from the sky comes straight from the Bible. There's actually a Bible verse from Joshua 10:11 that reads, "The Lord cast down great stones upon them, and they died." Hooray! There's not much to be said about this story. It just kind of happened, and then all of a sudden it stopped, without really a true explanation of why there were just random rocks falling from the sky. And since this has happened so many times throughout so many years, it seems that we might never know the true mystery of why rocks suddenly fall from the sky. On August 7th, 1994, translucent gelatinous, that word is very hard for me to say, gelatinous, blobs started falling from the sky. A police officer named David Lacey and his friend were just driving around Oakville when the rain started to happen. So naturally he turned on his windshield wipers, but it just kind of like smeared the rain around, which was very strange. Usually the windshield wipers do the trick, getting the rain off the windshield, but this was different. So Officer Lacey decided to pull into a gas station parking lot, donned a pair of gloves, and picked up one of these blobs. There was nothing really special about it besides the fact that it had come from the sky. It was just very squishy is how Lacey described it, and it was about the size of a grain of rice. And Lacey thought it was definitely weird, but he was very nonchalant about it. Like, he was like, well, moving on with my day. Dude, I would have been freaking out. I would have been in lockdown in my basement, getting ready for the end of the world. He's just like, whatever, just another Tuesday. Everything seemed normal after the rain stopped. Everything was just fine and peachy until people began to fall ill, that is. For example, the day after Officer Lacey picked up the blob, he started to feel nauseous and fatigued, which was not normal for him. Hi. You can come in. My cat stuck her paw under the door and she was like, let me in. This is the first time I filmed without the cats. Other locals who had been in contact with these blobs reported feeling vertigo-like symptoms, inner ear infections, respiratory infections, and things of the like. It's even stated that many people were admitted to the local hospital days after the blobs had fell from the sky. Additionally, and this is really sad, a few animals, up to 12, had been reported as dead after being in contact with the blobs that day. At first, doctors didn't connect the hospitalizations with the blobs, but after a few days, they couldn't ignore the fact that this was a little bit strange. At this point, a doctor named David Little decided to collect a few samples of the blobs for testing. Upon further examination, these blobs actually showed to have white blood cells within them, which we're going to get into later. But if you don't know, a white blood cell is basically a cell. It is in, our bodies, other mammals' bodies, and they, protect you against disease and things like that by fighting off and killing anything that is, abnormal in your bloodstream. And these cells aren't inherently dangerous in any way, so that didn't really make sense why it was making people sick who got in contact with them. The samples were then sent off to the Washington State Department of Health and an ecology department just to get a better idea of what these blobs were made out of and maybe get some answers as to why people were falling ill. So once these two departments ran these tests on the blobs, they didn't find human blood cells. But what they did find were two different types of bacteria. The two types of bacteria that were found within the blobs were Pseudomonas florenceae and Enterobacter cloacae. I hope I made my microbiology teacher proud right there, because those are tongue twisters. Why are bacteria named like this? Why can't we just name them what they're called? Anyway, I have beef with microbiology people. I love microbiology, but why are the names so hard? Unrelated. Moving on. So Enterobacter cloacae is a harmful pathogen when introduced to immunocompromised people. However, this is relatively rare. So according to the ecology departments that this blob was sent to, it was shown that the sizes and shapes of the cells were varying, but they weren't human cells. So this is really all the information that was found before the blobs mysteriously disappeared from the lab. That's weird. Right? That's weird. This could seem really suspicious, and I think it kind of is, but unfortunately, it was probably just misplaced or mislabeled or thrown away. So let's get into the theories of the random blobs falling from the sky. So one very popular theory is that the blobs were actually just parts of jellyfish that had somehow been taken up into the sky and then rained down on Oakville. One thought was that the Air Force was actually doing some sort of bomb testing, and that they dropped a bomb into the water and it exploded jellyfish. It was confirmed that there were bomb testings happening about 40 to 50 miles from Oakville on the same day that the blobs rained down from the sky. That being said, the government denied putting any of their citizens at risk at any point. So I have no opinion on that. Another theory is that the government was testing some sort of biochemical weapon, and that they tested it on the citizens of Oakville, Washington. As shitty as it is, that is a theory. Another theory that a local doctor came up with is that the blobs that fell from the sky might have been discharged from an airplane flying by. This might actually explain why there were bacteria and possible white blood cells within the blobs, as well as maybe why animals have been dying, because planes actually use antifreeze within their discharge process. However, this idea was quickly shut down by the federal aviation industry, as
They pointed out that if the blobs had come from plane discharge, they would have been dyed blue from the antifreeze. And as you can probably remember, the blobs were transparent. So the answer, or the theory with the most weight behind it, is the fact that the blobs were most likely star jelly. This jelly is formed from freshwater algae, and it takes the shape of a transparent gelatinous blob. And you can sometimes actually see these just around on the ground, and they form after a rainstorm sometimes. So this would explain the what is it, what is the blob, but it doesn't explain why it fell from the sky. And that just remains a mystery. We don't really know how they fell from the sky or why. I definitely agree that looking up pictures, and I'll obviously like insert pictures of star jelly and then what the gelatinous blobs look like, but you can clearly see that this is the most plausible theory. It really looks exactly like star jelly. But it's strange because why did it fall from the sky? Why did it make people sick? It's kind of weird. The good news is that no humans were seriously or fatally injured from these blobs. So our last story today takes place in Bath County, Kentucky. On March 3rd of 1876, a woman only known as the wife of Allen was outside making soap one day. Around 11 a.m., something strange began to happen. Pieces of bloody, raw meat began to fall from the sky. Blech. She said that it looked like beef and felt like snowflakes, which is just the most awful description I've ever heard. The pieces of meat stuck to the house, the ground, the fence, and it was littered just everywhere. A few townspeople decided to try the meat, and they said it tasted very gamey, like either like a venison or a beef of some sort. These 5 by 5 centimeter samples were collected and preserved, and they were tested about 3 months later. And at this point, the theories started rolling in. So at first, people thought that the meat could have actually been star jelly. More specifically, a species called no-stick cranium, which is like seaweed colored, but it can also look more flesh colored, almost like meat. A histologist actually ID'd the samples as either human or horse lung tissue, which is extremely unsettling, but we'll move along. Another histologist took a look at the samples, and they thought that it was either human cartilage or some other type of tissue. So these samples got passed around through several different professionals, which I think is actually really great that people took this seriously, even so, early, and we used the technology that we had at that time. And here's what the professionals found. Out of the 7 samples, it was confirmed that 2 of the samples had been cartilage, 3 of them had been muscle, and the last 2 had been lung tissue. Probably the best and the most widely believed explanation for this random meat shower came from Dr. D.L. Kastenbein. With the sample he looked at, he concluded that the mysterious meat shower was probably most likely from a vulture projectile vomiting. Yeah, you heard that right. This poor woman was covered in vulture vomit. Who would have thunk it? This would kind of explain the weird conglomeration of like different kinds of tissue, the lung, cartilage, muscle, all that stuff, as well as the kind of, it wasn't a very widespread rain. It was just very like in this lady's yard. So it kind of just made the most sense. And there are 2 types of vultures native to Kentucky that are known to projectile vomit. So the best theory that scientists came up with is that a vulture just had a bad meal and decided to just barf it up all over this lady's soap. You could get many things out of today's stories. I think the one that I take out of it the most, don't go outside, because even on a clear day, you might get pummeled with stones, hit with gelatinous blobs, or just projectile vomited on by a vulture. Comment down below. What would you rather experience? The stone rain, the gelatinous blob star jelly rain, or the meat shower rain? Because they're all not good. I think that I think the stones would be your best bet. Because you could go inside and be protected from the stones as long as you're away from the windows. But, like, who wants to get puked on by a vulture or, like, sick from a gelatinous blob? Not me. Anyway, comment below. I want to know. Please let me know. I don't know why I'm so curious now, but I am. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you did. I appreciate all the love, all the support, and yeah, that's about all I gotta say about that. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. It's finally summer. Frickin' finally. I'm filming this at the end of May and it's finally just warming up where I live. Get outside, enjoy that weather, enjoy that sunshine. Take a little walk, drink some water, and yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and keep being the bad bitches that you are. Goodbye, guys.